As always, guys, if you're looking for the most in-depth Ifa teachings, transformative divination experiences, and authentic Ifa products and services, you are definitely in the right place. Also, guys, if you are watching this live, go ahead and add any comments, questions, inquiries, etc. into the chat box. If you're watching it on replay, then you can definitely insert your questions in the comment section, um, wherever you are watching from. Well, that would be like YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn. I'm not connected to Facebook for some reason. That's what happened. It was like it just stopped. So let's go ahead and get started. I don't want to waste anybody's time. I know it's lunch break for many of you all, and I really appreciate you guys for showing up here with me. So today we're going to break down the cost, the expectations of Ifa initiation, right? So we're looking at exhortation and things like that, who should get initiated, and also making some wise decisions in your choice to get initiated and the price that you are going to pay for initiation. So I'm not going to dive into full on the initiation process today. I actually plan to cover that in next week live, where I'm going to go step by step for those of you all who've asked me about what it entails and what to expect and so forth and so on. So I do want to first thank everybody who participated in the survey, whether it was on IG or YouTube. I want to share with you guys the combined results. So this is from both platforms. I only ran it on those two platforms. Um, Guys, can you hear me? Are you able to hear me? Were you good? I guess nobody's complaining, so I guess it's good, right? So this, as far as the survey results go, about 37.5% of you all said that you had gotten a price between about $3,000 to $5,000 for initiation. Almost half said about 5,000 to 10,000, so that was the most. 12.5% between the 10,000 to 15,000 mark, and then 3.5% for 15,000 rather and over for Ifa initiation. So this is some really vital data that is consistent with pretty much what's going on. Thank you so much for that, Keenan. I appreciate you. You're saying you can hear me. Good to see you too in the live. But definitely going back to what I was saying. So that is around the normal price range. We're going to dig into it, look at the reasons behind this, what you should pay on average for Ifa initiation. That's going to depend on so many different factors. So I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm just telling you like what type of things to look out for and what things should typically be included in the process. I want to start with the reasons to get initiated, though, because this is the most important part of the process before we even get to looking at the money and things like that. First and foremost, this should be a spirit-led decision, guys. This should not be a decision that you are making based on somebody pressuring you, telling you have to get initiated, so forth and so on. You shouldn't do it out of desperation, and definitely not because it's trending, because it is trending right now, which in part is a good thing because that means that it's being brought to the forefront, the tradition it is. However, on the opposite end of that spectrum, so many people are focused on Ifa initiation and not really looking at the full scope of what Ifa is about. And they look at it again as like a trend. So our Odessa is joining us. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here as well. So the ultimate purpose of getting initiated, guys, is to deepen that spiritual connection between you and Ifa, because we're talking about Ifa initiation, which is something I want to clarify too for you individuals who practice the Lukumi and the Santeria, because I know when you guys go and get initiated, you get multiple Orisha at once. You don't just get Ifa, but we're talking about Ifa initiation in the Isheshe, or the traditional aspect of the tradition that comes out of West Africa, Nigeria specifically. I'm getting comment here. My initiation was amazing. I was initiated in Nigeria, Oyo State, paid almost 10,000. Thank you for that. Oh yes, and that reminds me too. So I did get some text, some DMs rather, from a few of you guys, and some said that you did get a price that was less than the $3,000 amount. I saw between $2,000 to $2,500, something like that, from some people, and then some even DM me and said it was much more, 30,000, up to 30,000. I think was the highest that I saw that people were saying. So definitely, Alafia, Daniela, thank you for joining as well. Thank you all too for joining on IG. I can't bring your comments on the stage, but I appreciate everybody no matter where you are joining us from. So, what was that? Somebody saying, can you go for Ifa initiation and Orisha initiation? So in Isheshe, I'm speaking to specifically, you can, absolutely. However, when you're saying Ifa initiation, you're specifically speaking about the Orisha Ifa. So it can get confused because in the diaspora and traditions like Lukumi, we do see people going to get initiated, as I said before, and they're getting all of the Orisha at once. And it's a different process. It is a different process than Ifa initiation itself. And I do plan, like I said before, next week to really go step by step so we can dig into what Ifa initiation looks like in Nigeria. And then I also plan to bring somebody on to talk about the initiation process in the Lukumi tradition. I think I say it wrong all the time. I try to say it the right way, but I hear it pronounced so many different ways. Lukumi, whichever the name of it is. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, with that. So also, if you do want to be a priest or a priestess in the tradition, you do have to get initiated. So that is a prerequisite there. All right. But you should also look at initiation as a partnership, not as a transactional relationship. What I mean by this is sometimes people just come up and say, I want to initiate with you. I get this all the time. I get emails with people saying, like, I want to initiate with you or through your ELA, but I've never worked with these individuals before. Have no problem with, going down that path with you, but you shouldn't just initiate to anybody. Like, you should have started that relationship with them beforehand to know that this is the person that you actually want to go through that process with. Okay. Also note that it's not mandatory, no matter what anybody tells you, right? It is not mandatory, even in the cases where it's very important for some people, because it is some situations where it's very important for individuals to initiate to prevent untimely death, sickness, disease, or other hardships. But even in those cases, it is your choice. And also, if you choose not to initiate, you can still continuously develop a relationship with the Orisha, especially if you get the Orisha pots and things like that I spoke about in a previous live stream. Okay. Alafia, welcome. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming in. And you say you appreciate it. Thank you. I hope this information is very helpful for you guys, because I get questions about the Ifa initiation soon. And I'm actually going to be updating the website right now. We are even updating our process for Ifa initiation. And most of the time I have those conversations with the clients that we're already working with. So this is one of the reasons why I haven't put it online, but I'm getting more and more feedback and more questions from people about, the price, about the process with us, so forth and so on. So I do want to put some content out there for you all. And when I do, I'll alert you like, hey, this is up. So if you want to go check this out, you can go ahead and do that. Trying to get it out maybe in the next couple of weeks. That's the goal. Okay. So general costs and expectations. Okay. So the cost can vary so many different ways for so many different reasons. Okay, it's going to depend on definitely the region, the location where you are, because the process can also vary, especially when we're talking about initiating in Nigeria versus in the Western world, right? So in the Caribbean islands, even here in America, the UK, and other parts of the world, the price is definitely going to range based on the cost of living in those areas, if nothing else. Okay. The number of days also. So typically, as I said before, 3 to 21 days, that can be the range, but usually it's going to be 3 to 7 days, but the span can be up to 21 days and even beyond, just depending on how they handle that particular process. Also, the level of expertise of the owl, the person, or it's going to be one main person for sure, but there are also other officiates and things like that there. So obviously, the higher level that person is, the more knowledge, the more expertise, the more in demand they are, the more they're going to charge for their services. And I'm going to get into this later, but you got to understand, when a person is initiating you, that pulls them away from every other thing that they could be doing during that particular time. So they can't handle regular readings and ritual work and so forth and so on. Is leukemia cheaper? Typically, I've seen the prices of leukemia be cheaper, but I'm not going to say it's cheaper just because it's leukemia, right? It depends on what goes into those individuals' processes. So that you have to assess by going and speaking to a priest or a priestess. Now, I could say probably you may be considered cheaper because you do get multiple orishas and things like that when you initiating that tradition versus just getting Ifa. All right. Typical price range is $3,000 to $15,000, right, in the Western world and Nigeria. Again, depending on multiple factors, I'm going to get to why we have these big discrepancies in price here. Of course, it can be higher, it can be lower. Just ultimately depends on the person, how they're pricing their process, so forth and so on. A fair, reasonable, customary price for Ifa initiation is going to be between $5,000 to $15,000. Okay, that is what you should be looking at. Greetings, Asaju. Nice to have you. I hope I said it right this time. Nice to have you as well. And greetings to everybody joining again on Instagram and any other platforms that you're joining on. If I can't see you, I'll bring you on the stage when you come in. Okay, so spending more money, though, doesn't mean that the process is better or more effective or more authentic. Likewise, paying less doesn't mean that you are getting a good deal. It all depends on what's going on in that. So now we're going to transition and look at the cost breakdowns, the variations in the prices, and some factors connected to transparency. So what is included? You're paying for sacrifices and offerings, which are much more than what you would normally pay for during a typical Ifa divination session. You have to pay the officiants, so the people that are overseeing the process, because typically it's going to be more than 1 hour. A lot of times you are even going to have the higher level priests and priestesses overseeing this particular ceremony for you. As I said before, these individuals must get paid for their time. Usually they lose whole days while they are participating in an initiation ceremony because it takes up so much time, resources, energy, etc. Any type of materials that's needed at that shrine, garments, ceremonial garments. If necessary, they may have to rent a space. I see that a lot more. So here in the US, where they don't have like these formalized temples like you see in Nigeria and places like that, Lodging and meals could be included. So some places will provide you with accommodations. They'll help you with that process. And so they may include that in the fee if they are going to be housing you. Otherwise, you have to pay for that on your own. And so the expense would pretty much still come out to be the same thing at the end of the day, because you still have to pay for somewhere to stay. Transportation, and what I mean by this is usually it's going to be local transportation in the area. Now, these factors, of course, apply to somebody who will be traveling from one place to another to get initiated versus somebody that's already in that particular space. And of course, other miscellaneous things, supplies, so forth and so on, go into their pricing structure. The central part of this is going to be the animal sacrifices, as I said before. It requires a lot more than what you would typically give whenever you just get a regular Ifa reading. The cost of the animals alone can range from like $2,500 to $3,000. Okay, that's just the animal. So this is why you would know, like, a price of $3,000 or less is on the cheaper end, because what happens here, if it is cheaper than like $3,000, that person is probably skimming on the animals that they need to do your ritual work. Instead of providing maybe like 4 or 5 chickens, they may be providing 1 chicken or something like that. And this is something that you do not want to happen, because initiation, you are feeding multiple spirits during that time. All right, you're not just feeding one spirit, and you're giving a lot. It's a huge process. Not only that, is there are standard animal sacrifices, that are going to be used in that process. But even so, there could be cases where check-ins are done and there are extra animals that are needed in individual circumstances. So that's another factor that they have to account for as well, because they don't know that ahead of time. It's not like an Ifa reading where you do, the divination and you tell the person, this is what Ogun, Eshu, so forth and so on, ask for, and you can give them a straight price. You don't know really until the person is going through the process exactly what they need outside of those standard sacrifices and offerings. As I mentioned several times before, when you're giving offerings in the Ifa tradition, when you're sacrificing an animal, you want the top level animal to be sacrificed. You don't want just any animal that somebody goes out there and finds in the bush. So I'm talking about Africa here, because I know that's not a thing in the average part of the US. But my point being here is, you don't want an animal that's just reared for general purposes. Definitely not an animal, especially in the US, that is reared to just be cooked and eating. Okay, you want animals that are raised in a specific way, because this is for your spiritual work. Very similar to the biblical concept here. As a matter of fact, that's where it came from in the Bible, is that we want animals of the highest grade. If you go back into the Old Testament, you'll see a number of stories. Even so, Cain and Abel, how Abel gave like a lesser offering, so to speak. And that's why the God of the Bible was upset with him. But even so, he gave it was a non-animal sacrifice or what have you, right? And so why did he get upset? Because he gave something weaker. And we don't want to do that. We want to give the highest quality. The highest quality is going to cost more money. That's how it goes, okay? You're saying you need to come back to this live. Absolutely. It'll be available on YouTube, guys, for anybody who misses it. It'll be available right when we finish on YouTube at Asanee 44, my YouTube channel. And also later on, I'll put on Spotify for those who like to listen to it there, but it'll be Wednesday before it gets on Spotify. So keep those things in mind when it comes to the animals. You don't want somebody skimming in this process at all. You don't want them skimming even in regular ritual work, but definitely not when it comes to your initiation ceremony, okay? I talked about this before. People are going to be taken from their regular duties, so they're going to need to be compensated That's going to cost money. Some individuals are going to provide you with a complete package that includes like all of the items and the services together. That's the price that you are going to pay. While others might give you like a list of materials and ask you to go and collect them, or you might pay for them separately. Again, everybody's price is different. It's just like any other thing in the world. Like you're gonna go places and you're gonna find different processes for this. I will say here though, it's better for you not to get the items yourself. It's better for somebody who is trained in this capacity to move forward and get those things for you if possible. Now, some elays will allow you to do a payment plan, or they might, like, say, pay part of it up front. It might be a third, it might be half of it. It just depends on their processes or what have you. Some places also offer group initiation. So this can either like reduce your fees, especially if you're initiating with a group of people, because then is less money to bring all of the officiants there and so forth, so on. And also if they offer a payment plan, it may just be better for you overall if you kind of manage your resources, your financial resources in that way. When you get ready for this process, especially if you are shopping around, so to speak, which I don't recommend, but that's your thing. If you are going to shop around, you can go out and compare the price of multiple elays. Ask for a cost breakdown. Do your research, standard pricing, and so forth and so on to help you to make a sound decision. That being said, I always recommend that you initiate at the house that you've been working with. In that case, it's not going to be the best idea to go and shop around, because if you have a relationship already established with an elay, with the INIFA, the IWO, or what have you there, like going to get somebody else's price doesn't really make sense. Okay, and definitely, please do not do this. Do not go to somebody else and say, well, this person charges this over here. Again, it's like anything else in life. You are not going to go from a Honda dealer to a Bugatti dealer and tell Bugatti that Honda charges $25,000 for whatever vehicle that you're looking at, or Civic Accord, or whatever it may be, right? Because they're going to look at you like, okay, because it doesn't matter. That's irrelevant, because now you're at a different dealership. So please don't do that type of price comparison. At the end of the day, guys, if you're not financially ready for this endeavor, wait. Prepare yourself financially if this is the road that you want to travel down when it comes to working with IFA. As I said before, it's nothing that you should be rushing into unless there is a reason to do so, because there are situations where some people need to get initiated to prevent, loss of life early on and so forth. All right, so now let's look at all of the justifications and the value that you can get from the different price ranges as I've talked about before. All right, so many expenses involved here. Okay, so like I said before, people are charging you much less. You really, even higher, whatever they're charging, you want to dig in and see what the costs are for. But don't just go with something just because it's cheaper, because they might be skimming on some things and you don't want that to happen in your ceremony. Okay. Initiations priced between 10 to 15,000 are often going to cover so many different layers of spiritual work. Obviously, the ceremony itself, any type of premium or rare materials, because it may be needed in your case, lodging and transportation, as I mentioned before, extended education as well. So usually 3 to 7 days going into the process itself. That's going to depend a lot too on how many people are there. So the more hours that are available to help out with the process, usually the less time through the initiation phase. However, if it's just handful of hours that are doing the work, it's going to take longer. That just is common sense. and it might be cheaper, but then it takes longer. And if you have situations where like you have to take off work in order to go through this process, you got to take longer off for work. But usually, as I said before, this price range is going to cover all of the materials needed, especially the animal sacrifices and other materials, and the cost of paying people, but also it could include extended education, which is a huge benefit for you because the initiation ceremony is about initiation. It's not really about education, but some people do incorporate this into the process so that you're fully equipped once you leave the initiation, ceremony or what have you, especially if you've traveled to get there. Okay. And if you're like in Nigeria, for instance, they may even integrate some type of cultural immersion, taking you to some of the tourist spots that's related to the tradition. And just even so, like some places in Nigeria. So some people may even, do tourism and things like that in Lagos if that's something that you're interested in, just to give you that experience or what have you, or it might connect you with somebody who can give you such experiences. You want to look for itemized lists, okay, or at least a general explanation of what's included. If somebody is refusing to explain their cost to you, and I'm going to say if you have legitimate concerns, like you don't want to go in and just badger somebody, but if you have legitimate questions related to the cost and they're refusing to explain it to you, or they are discouraging you from asking questions, or pressuring you, go ahead and pay. Those could be red flags. So temper that with how you would shop for pretty much anything else. When you're making a purchasing decision and you want the specs, the qualifications, go ahead and look at it from that perspective. You can ask legitimate questions, as I said before. Don't go in and harassing people and things like that. Okay, so post-initiation. I'm going to touch on this briefly because, like I said before, I really want to dig into this aspect of it in the next week's live. This isn't about like guaranteed wealth, prosperity, success, and all of these transformative experiences, getting the love of your life and being healthy and so forth and so on. Those things can come, and they probably will come if you work within the tradition in a rightful way. But that's not what Ifa initiation is about. So if you're going into it for those reasons, don't do it, because it's not going to guarantee you anything. It's about higher level connectivity, protection, spiritual insight, and wisdom. Okay. Sometimes you are going to feel like a much deeper level of spiritual empowerment once you go through this process. Some people won't. All right. Everybody's experience is different. Once you go through initiation, understand that you then have higher level responsibilities, okay? Especially if you were not working with the hand of Ifa beforehand, so you weren't feeding Ifa, if you had not received any taboos or anything like that. Even so, the taboos that you received when you got your hand of Ifa could possibly change a bit once you go ahead and do full-on initiation. Either way, you've kind of gotten into that groove beforehand of following taboos, possibly depending on what your taboos were. If it was something like that didn't like make a difference to you, it's not a big deal. Like, for me, one of my taboos is not to eat snake, and there's nothing that I'd ever went to go and try to do, right? Possibly I've eaten it before in something and I didn't know about it, but I've never went anywhere searching out snake. So that's a taboo that is completely easy for me to follow. However, I think I told you this before, fish, that became a taboo for me. And that's difficult for me to this day because I love fish, but I can't eat fish. So, those are things to think about. You have to be ready for that reality because you don't know what your taboos are going to be when you get initiated. So you should not You can't go to anybody rather and just say, well, what is it that I won't be able to do? Because you're not going to know until that process. And then once you know, like you go and you violate it, it's much worse on you, because then you're going to experience the challenges related to you violating those taboos to a whole nother level, because you know. Okay. Obviously, walking in gentle character. You are going to be expected to walk at a much higher level, because now you have the spiritual discipline. Well, I won't say discipline, the spiritual tools and resources that you need to walk that walk much better than you did before, right? As the expression goes, too much whom is given, much is required. So that's how it goes. Like, don't go and get initiated and just feel like you can live any kind of way. And of course, you want to continue the ritual processes if you want to maintain the energy behind your initiation. So it's not just you go and get initiated and you never have to do another Ifa reading and you never have to give any more sacrifices or offerings. Instead, you're actually expected to do it more so than just a regular devotee. All right. Also, the results will unfold over time. If an initiation is a blessed experience, however, don't expect to just, finish the ceremony and go back to your regular life and you just have all this spiritual prowess or what have you, and you're just this spiritual giant. No, usually it's going to, take its time to unfold and do its thing, and it will work if you are working it. Again, you have to follow taboos. You have to be disciplined. You have to walk in repellent. It's not just you do whatever you desire to do after that. So, Asaju, thank you again and again. We always appreciate the donations, the gifts. Really, thank you so much. Okay, so now we are going to transition to initiating in Nigeria versus abroad. All right, this is a question I get a lot. Really, there's no true better choice, right? It really depends on you and what you desire in your experience. So I'm just going to give you guys some quick highlights on either or. Okay, when it comes to Nigeria, yes, if you've never been to the continent before, and especially you are practicing not even just a continent, I'm going to say to Nigeria, because if you're practicing a tradition that's specifically related to, the people of Yoruba land, then it's great to go there and have that experience in Yoruba land if you've never been before. You get an opportunity to connect with generational, elders, people who've been in the tradition for from bloodline to bloodline to bloodline, okay? Get that sacred energy of Yoruba land. So there are so many pluses in going to the continent, okay? But likewise, there are benefits for certain people to do so abroad, whether it be in the US, the Caribbean islands, the UK, or wherever you may be considering initiating at, okay? So if you have limited travel access, for those of you all who can't get those passports because you're old child support and things like that in the US, I don't know how other countries work, then you won't have a choice but to stay here and go through that particular process. If you have specific health concerns, so if you're dealing with some chronic illnesses, or even so you are wheelchair bound or something like that, so those can be prohibitive. And of course, it will be easier to just do the process wherever you are. Or you just prefer to stay in your local environment, especially if you're working with a local owl and they can do everything for you right where you are in your region, then it's perfectly fine to do it there. So again, it's no right or wrong. For me, it's more so about you going through this process with this relationship that you've already established with whoever you are working with, okay? discernment and wise decision making here, guys. So this is the last section. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, guys, please feel free to go ahead and add them now, because I want to try to cover those as we transition out of it. All right. Again, don't rush. Do it in the right timing for you. All right. Even if it's an urgent situation, it still needs to be the right timing for you. Always ask for transparency regarding the costs and the expectations before you agree to the initiation process, because you also want to know what you need to do. Because as I mentioned before, especially if you're going to Nigeria, are they going to pay for transportation, local transportation? I mean, I don't know anybody who's going to pay for your airfare, but there may be some places that do it, but it's probably still going to be better for you to just go ahead and do that rather than depending on somebody else to do it for you. Unless it's like a group trip or something like that, maybe. But you ask those questions. Are they going to provide for your accommodations, where you're going to stay, things like that? Ask the right questions. As a matter of fact, I'm going to post later on today on YouTube. So guys, check out the YouTube. I'm going to put a post up of questions that you can ask. I think I'm going to put it on, I think I have that prepared for IG as well. So it might be on both platforms, but I am going to put up a list of questions that you can go ahead and grab. And if you're watching the replay of this, especially on Spotify, something like that, because I can't post on that, there's so much limitations to Spotify right now. But go ahead and grab that off of YouTube or IG. Okay, I'll post a list of questions that you can kind of ask to kind of tease out what the process should look like for you. Do your research. Ask those questions. Be mindful of whom you entrust with your essence. This is very, very important, because as soon as you give somebody, you're going to be given vital aspects of yourself when it comes to the initiation process. And so your essence is involved in it, your spiritual essence. You don't want to entrust that to just any and everybody, okay? Because people can use it to harm you. As I said before, always understand, guys, that when you're working with somebody who has this high level of spiritual knowledge and authority, they have the technology, the spiritual technology, to assist you, obviously, when they're doing ritual work for you, but they also have that same spiritual technology to harm you. All right. So you got to be real careful there with who you're working with. All right. As I've said several times throughout, next week, I really want to do a deep level dive into the step-by-step process of Ifa initiation. So guys, make sure you come back then. Right now, I'm still at 11 a.m. AZ time when it comes to the live streams on Monday. So always try to join at that time. I might do a survey or something to see what's the best time for you guys, but it's still going to be like in between the time frame that I and Adissa and I are also available, because we have an 8-hour time difference, and I like for him to be here. You are very, very welcome. Thank you guys for showing up as well. So guys, definitely, if you want to have that transformative divination experience, check us out, Asanee44.com. We have so many resources, and we are a full service temple. I don't list everything because some things, if I can't give a price, we can't give a price for it until we know your individual needs, because spirituality is like, there are some things that we can't charge. We can set up a charge beforehand. You can just go on the website and buy it. But if you need something, guys, just send me a quick email or DM on IG, and I'll get back with you about that. Okay. Thank you. I am not an Ianifa, guys. I am not an Ifa priestess. Okay. But I do appreciate everybody for showing up, and thank you for the many blessings. Okay, would this also apply when getting your hand of Ifa? What do you mean as far as the price? are you saying, what do you mean would this apply when it comes to getting the hand of Ifa? If you could clarify that for me. Okay. Guys, definitely go ahead and drop any comments, any lingering questions, comments. Drop it in the comment section. If you are watching the replay, we'll get to it. But I don't know what you mean when it comes. If you're talking about this is applied to pricing, no. Like, no, because, and we're going to talk about that. Oh yeah, your essence. So yes, the question here, guys. She's saying, like, giving somebody your spiritual essence. Does it apply when you get the hand of Ifa? Definitely. Whenever you get a reading, because you're giving those individuals your name, because your spiritual essence isn't limited to your physical location. So once you give people your name, you give them your mother's name. The mother's name is important, but they can still do, work for you or against you with just your name. All right. People do this all the time, like even to harm you. You don't even have to go and get a reading from somebody for somebody to use your essence against you. If somebody wants to put a curse or a hex on you and they know your name or have an image of you or what have you, they can work it that way. It happens all the time. Okay. So you don't have to be anywhere in order for somebody to do spiritual work for or against you. Only like with initiation, yes, because there are certain things that has to go on with you physically. And as I said before, like a destiny reading, the baby has to be there because they need the baby's feet, so forth and so on. But in general, you don't have to be present for somebody to do spiritual work for or against you. Question here, where would you suggest is the best place to get initiated in finding your head Orisha? With the Asanee 44, of course. Nah, definitely we do that type of work. But I would say, wherever you feel comfortable. Okay. So do your research, see who is resonating with you. If you find a priest or a priestess, and go from there. If you're saying where in terms of the physical geographical location, the where would be, again, like what's most comfortable to you, and also what's the most accessible to you, because everybody's situation is different. Some people can't travel. Some people don't want to travel. Some people do want to travel. So it just depends on you. You said yes, they try to do spiritual work, but at some level it can be blocked. Correct, it can. And this is what I tell y'all: do your protection work. Keep yourself protected. Okay, the Lakis are great for that, but and I should have said, I wanted to say this too. Coming back on from their Akoshi episode, if you have a public facing career or something like that, you want even higher level of protection work. All right, to keep yourself guarded. And it also depends on how spiritually vulnerable you are as far as somebody being able to penetrate you. There are some people who are just naturally really, really, highly protected without any work. But you can always benefit from extra work, especially depending on the things that you do, right? And then on the opposite end of that, there are some people who are just naturally spiritually vulnerable. It's just like a disease state, right? Your physical body or what have you. Some people just, come out the womb, strong immune system, what have you, and it's hard for diseases to attack them. Some people come out of the womb, horrible immune system, and everything attacks them. All right. So it really depends on you. There are certain things, certain people, I should say, like I said, naturally it's hard to penetrate them, but it's always still good to do protection work, especially when you're working in the tradition, especially when you have a public facing position. Even before I started doing this work, I was doing protection work because I worked as a professor. All right. So I had a very public facing job. I would stand up in front of people all the time and speak because I taught in the classroom. And so there was always energy. Even sometimes people are not trying to push negative energy on you. But if you're in environments all the time where you are connected to other people's energy, it can still get on you. So I advise people to consistently engage in protection work, especially depending on the type of job or the environment that they are in on a consistent basis. Blessings to you. Blessings to you as well. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining. So I hope that answered your questions. You saying thank you for the information. You're very, very welcome. You're welcome as well. I don't know how to pronounce some of your IG handles, and I'm shy when it comes to that because I mispronounce stuff all the time. So I'm just going to say thank you all for coming and supporting our efforts. Let us know if you have any questions. DM me if you're on IG, or you can shoot me an email, support@asanee44.com, and we'll try to get back with you. Okay. All right, guys, take care. It's been really, really amazing today. So you guys take care. Ashe. Have a very blessed and beautiful day and beyond.